Time now to get the latest trends in dive retailing, travel, and training with Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Now, here's your host, Scuba Radio's Greg the Divemaster.
That is me. I am Greg the Divemaster from Scuba Radio. You can check it out every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time. However, today it's time for Level Up, the official podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. The man behind the madness, William Cline.
Hey,
and,
everybody.
With me, along with a plethora of writers today that we're going to spotlight accordingly.
Great writers.
Right?
Got a great show for today, Greg. It's going to be so much fun.
No, well, yes, it will be. I have no doubt. But before we get to all the writers and even a little thing of what's going on with the magazine, we got to check in with Dan Orr because he's on a tight schedule to catch the eclipse, and he's in Iceland. Dan,
in Iceland.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Great, but I'm not as great as you, evidently. And I guess first off, why you're there to catch the eclipse and are you doing some diving in Iceland too, or what?
Yeah, we're here with a group of 22 people. We're working with Blue Green Expeditions out of Oregon, and they're here to do diving as well as see the eclipse on Thursday, or actually on the 12th. And so today we did our orientation dive in a local lake that's just north of Reykjavik.
And it was a nice, warm, balmy. What is balmy, the ocean
42 degrees.
42 degrees.
It was the largest lake in Iceland.
And you were in a shorty, I take it, right?
Oh, of course.
Of course you were. One word, shrinkage. That's all you need to know.
Shrinkage, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, that is crazy diving. I mean, have you already been diving a little bit, or you guys are just starting the
No,
trek?
I was actually surface support today. They were actually doing their orientation dives.
Yeah. What do you hope to see, other than the eclipse?
Well, they actually saw when we were doing ocean dives where they have these smokers, which are the vents that come up from the ocean floor with hot water, because this is such a volcanically active.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty crazy there in Iceland. And actually, while he's talking to us, he's in a bus, in a tour bus with his group, and he just froze.
and if
probably because the Wi-Fi froze when he said 42 degrees.
In two ways. Yeah, exactly. So Dan wrote a great article this month on page 6, A Common Sense Approach to Snorkeling Safety for Older Adults. I'm hoping he'll pop back in here, but it was when he submitted the idea to me, I thought, we're a dive magazine. We don't write about snorkeling. And oh my gosh, it was fantastic. And dug into issues with IPE, I think it's what it's called, right? The pulmonary edema, and the dangers for adults, and an entire basic checklist for any dive operator out there, any retailer that's doing specific organized events or not even, but with older adults. And I got to be honest with you, I've been involved in a lot of operations over the years, and I never even occurred to me that there should be a separate set of protocols for folks of age. And there's one of the studies that they did in the article was they had a group of people, I don't know what the ages were, but they called them older divers, swim 100 yards in a pool and then 100 yards in the open ocean and compare the differences. So, Dan, I was just kind of giving them an overview of your article. If you want to jump back in and talk about, I told them I was fascinated by what you wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, well, actually, what I wanted to do first is thank the magazine and thank you, because the information we got out about the Florida lobster mini season, I think, made a significant difference, because over the last couple of years, there have been 3 fatalities and a number of serious injuries. This time, there were no fatalities and no reported injuries.
That is good news for sure.
That's good
Take
news.
full
Great
credit,
news.
Dan,
as
you
Dan,
should.
Oh, no, I
great
think it was the
idea.
magazine.
Thank
That
you.
did all that.
Yeah.
Dan did a great job. Even made up a poster that was a downloadable poster and was the inside back cover that could be ripped off too of the magazine. So thank you, Dan. That was brilliant. We're getting ready to run an article on California lobster mini season as well. So
there you go.
Well, about my article, really, it's the same old thing that we hear all the time. People are out there snorkeling and they're not fully prepared. They'll say, well, I'd snorkeled a year ago and therefore I'm really ready for it and I'm prepared. I had a physical a couple of years ago and nothing to worry about. And they don't think about the fact that it's hard work sometimes. You're also breathing through a small tube and can precipitate emergent pulmonary edema. There are a number of fatalities that occurred over the last couple of years, especially older adults. People who are breathing hard through that narrow tube, and emergent pulmonary edema is an issue. Cardiac arrest is a serious issue. And the fact that people overestimate
how their Wi-Fi works. when they're in Iceland.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, he got most of it out there before it froze again. But
I'll continue as his sentence. They overestimate their physical abilities. That was the study that they talked about. The difference between swimming in a pool versus the ocean is much more physical. And I believe you said, Dan, there was something like 7 or 8 deaths in the Florida Keys from older divers.
There are 8 of them. Yeah, older divers.
Mm.
Yeah, in fact, I mentioned in the article something that I saw on the ABC morning show where they were talking about the fact they took people who were really very athletic, put in a swimming pool, had them do laps, and then had them do the same thing in the open ocean to the same distance. And a lot of them struggled, and a couple of them had to be rescued.
Well, that's not good, but it's something to be aware of, especially.
Well, he has a really good checklist too for an operator, and everybody should read this if you're in the business of taking snorkelers out. It's really good common sense. It makes good sense. Everything should be addressed that he's got in this article. They should have emergency procedures in place for many of these.
They really need to have somebody on the boat that's watching all the snorkelers in the water all the time.
There you go. Well, good stuff as always, Dan. I think we probably ought to let you get back to Iceland and looking for the eclipse and freezing your
get frozen for real.
I can't wait to see his pictures, though. He's such an amazing photographer.
Absolutely he is.
And the key word is indeed shrinkage.
Hey, maybe we'll end up with a good cover photo shot from Iceland.
Oh,
that'd be perfect for the hot.
I know. I
summer.
think you're going to have some complaints if you focus on shrinkage, especially. But maybe I misheard you. Anywho,
thank you, Dan, for all your work.
Yes, enjoy your travel there, buddy.
Yes.
All right.
So
moving on. I guess we need to switch gears and talk a little bit about the latest issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine and what's coming up on the next few months and stuff. And that's where Britain comes into play, I believe. Right, Willie?
You got it, Britain. Why don't you fill us in on what's going on?
All righty. Well, hi, everyone. We're getting closer and closer to the DEMA Show, just 89 days away now. And if you're planning to attend, check out your DEMA game plan starts now. In our July issue. It has some really awesome tips to help attendees prepare for the show and just make the most of their time. For exhibitors, remember that we publish industry press releases at no charge. Just send your news to any of our email addresses listed in our website at scubadivingindustry.com, and we'll share it across our extensive dive industry social media channels. Speaking of DEMA, make sure to stop by and say hello. We'll be recording podcasts every day from booth 126 right near DEMA Central. And if you're planning to attend the Cayman Islands International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame induction ceremony during the first week of September, please reach out. I'll be reporting live each day from the Grand Cayman for the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism and the International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame. But other than that, Greg, that wraps it up for me.
Well, you mentioned DEMA, and it just so happens we have the official ambassador of the 50-year anniversary of the DEMA Show with us. That's right.
Yes.
The dive god, Neil Watson.
Tell us about what you're going to be doing with the DEMA Show.
Yeah, I was blown away that I was honored to be asked to be the ambassador to the Diving Hall of Fame Pavilion at DEMA this year. For years, it's been hosted by somebody else that we just lost in the industry, Zale Perry, which an amazing lady and legend. But I think it's going to be right next to the DEMA booth. I invited, obviously, everybody to come by, but certainly the past recipients of the Hall of Fame awards. And I'm really excited to do it and look forward to seeing everybody there.
And by the way, we're going to be doing live updates with Neil every day from the show floor, from the ambassador's location. So that's going to be a really fun show. So tune in.
For what it's worth, usually they have a little small bar right there set up that I get quite a bit. So
there might be some rum punch under my boot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no. I've had your rum punch. Bad things happened.
It definitely has a punch.
Bad things happen.
That's so true. Right. That's so funny.
Yeah. But good stuff. Look forward to it, and that's going to make the event just that much better this year, knowing that the dive god is going to be featured accordingly and just carrying that torch for the industry.
Fun. I mean, New Orleans, I'm looking forward to New Orleans as well. I missed it when it was at the show last time. I was at the airport. I had arrangements to go, and storm came in, canceled the flight. I was only going for 2 days. So I wound up missing it. So I'm looking forward to making it this year for sure.
There you go. You make up for lost time for sure.
Right.
So everybody should plan accordingly to have a drink with the dive god.
That's going to be
the
fun.
50-year anniversary of
Maybe
DEMA
Britain
this year.
we'll record a happy hour every day. That'd be a good show.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Up next, we're going to Portugal, I believe. So Andrew and Amber both went on a fam trip to this part of the world that I've actually talked about Portugal quite a bit on Scuba Radio, but I've never been there myself. So I'm pretty anxious to hear what happened. And first off, Willie, how did this come to be? You want to set that up?
So the Madeira, there's a couple of islands off the coast of Portugal. One's called Madeira, the other's called Porto Santo, and they have a promotion bureau that had working with Arlindo at Dive Portugal, invited Amber, and I didn't know at the time, but Andrew also happened to be on the same fam, and so they got invited on behalf of the government and spent a week over there diving and touring both of the islands, and resulted in this amazing cover shot from Andrew of one of the wrecks that they were on. And congratulations, number one, Andrew, for following up Stephen Frank last month as a cover shooter. So
Thank you.
That's a huge honor, and we appreciate your contribution. So I'm going to let them talk a little bit about. It's on page 30 in this current issue. And
the cover obviously is page 1, I assume.
Page 1,
right?
Yeah. The article's on page 30, and maybe start out by telling everybody a little bit about Madeira and Porto Santo and what the diving was like. That's probably the first thing.
Yeah, Amber, why don't you go first, and then we'll talk about the cover shot.
I was going to let Andrew go first.
Okay, well,
young whippersnapper. I can just mention that the deep diving went well for him because I think he had 6, 8, 10 pastel de natas every day. So you just sank like a rock.
Oh, I thought that was a local concoction or drink that you just threw out there, but
no, it's a pastry.
Oh,
no, it's one of the greatest pastries ever made, and they serve it with a little cappuccino
like
every
a donut kind of thing. Describe it. Now I'm getting hungry.
No, it's almost like a buttery,
it's like a custard
filled with like a creme brulee filling then flambéed.
It's just a gooey mess that you wolf down, and you're just super happy.
8 to 10 every day.
Wow. Okay. So it's like Portuguese beignets or something, maybe. Is that a way to describe it? The local.
No, it's like a Portuguese custard tart.
Okay. Well, that's probably even better. All right. Good. So other than the food, what did you see there, Amber? And especially on the diving side of things.
Well, actually, that photo that Andrew took is our friend Linda from Dutch Diver. Those are her white fins. Yep. But we did 3 dives, one off of, and I believe they pronounce it Madeira locally, but I don't have that Portuguese accent. That's okay.
I'm doing the Texas version.
We honor Arlindo. Yes. And then 2 at Porto Santo. And so they are very, very different islands, right? Madeira is very lush, very, very green. The water was certainly not the 42 degrees that Dan is enjoying, but it was 68. So it had a little nip to it. And then Porto Santo is very, not desert-like, but it actually has a beach. It's very arid. Yep. Very dry. Not nearly as elevated. And so it's very windy. But we were all over both islands. We covered a lot of miles, didn't we, Andrew?
We did. And it's interesting. The 2 islands, even though they're only about 20 miles apart, are entirely different landscapes.
Yeah. Well, from your cover shot, Andrew, it looks like it's obviously on the deck of a artificial reef that is sunk there somewhere in Portugal. So was that what you guys were diving on? Were a lot of wreck sites, or was it a mix, or what exactly?
It was a mix when it came to the diving out there between, landscapes and coral, and then also wreck diving. I would say the main draw in Porto Santo would definitely be the wreck dives between the wreck that the cover shot is on the Madeira Nice. It's a old cargo ship that was sunk in 2000. They have another beautiful shipwreck that we also dove called the Cordeca, and that is a old naval vessel that was sunk as an artificial reef as well. So they've still got the guns on it, everything. Cool. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's on page 30. They got a great, all the underwater photos in the article are from Andrew. So there's some great shots there. And in fact, you said you saw something you've never seen in your entire life of diving. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so if you open up the article, I believe it's on page 31, it's going to be a fireworm that myself and all of the staff also at the local dive centers had said they had never seen in their life. And it was a mutated fireworm that had two tails. Um, at first, when we came across it on the dive, I thought this, is very likely two fireworms mating. But when we got close, it was actually conjoined.
Wow.
Wow.
So
And
was that a
by-
freak of nature or just a local marine life feature that they have there?
No, that was a freak of nature.
Okay. All
It's
right.
quite interesting to see.
Conjoined
So-
twins of fireworms. I don't know. That's kind of odd, but
On
cool.
page 32, just for anybody that wants to see where they went, is an entire schedule. It has all the people where they stayed at, the restaurants they ate at, the dive operators they dove with, all the logistics of moving around. So if you're a dive shop out there, you're interested, dive retailer, center out there, Catherine, that's looking to book something different, out of the way, a little different destination, that would certainly be it. Wouldn't you agree, Andrew? Amber?
It is. Yeah, and that was a
tons of
perfect
variety.
schedule.
Yeah, a little shout out
Tons
to
of variety.
Arlindo too. He's really
Oh
been
my gosh, he
putting,
kept us busy and we learned so much and we had an absolute blast.
yeah, he's definitely put Portugal on the map the last few years. Has been very active in the dive industry to make the world aware of the diving opportunities they have in that part of the world. So, tip of the hat to Arlindo there for sure.
Isn't there a dive show coming up in Portugal?
Yeah, Diving Talks is Arlindo's dive show. I think it's in October.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of smack right about a month or so before the DEMA show, or 3 or 4 weeks before the show, something like that.
Divingtalks.com, I think, or if you Google it, Diving Talks is the name of
it
the
really
show,
kind of started as like a TED Talks of diving, and now it's actual show, and they have sponsors, and I know Shearwater is a big sponsor, and there's several other manufacturers and exhibitors there. So,
well, I think Catherine's been there before, if I remember correctly. So, which brings us to our next speaker, I think. And, you give Portugal 2 thumbs up after your visit, I assume, right?
Who, me?
Yeah, you, Catherine.
Well, I live here. I mean, I live in
that's
Missouri,
true.
So,
yeah, it's right next door to her.
Both thumbs up all the time. And just another shout out to Arlindo. Definitely check out Diving Talks. It's October 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Lisbon. And there are some pre and post Diving Talks trips available. So you can check out the website and maybe even book not only the TED Talks of diving trip, but also some actual diving.
And now you know to order one of those crazy desserts that they were raving about there as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And the thing about the pastel nata is you have it warm with a little panela, which is cinnamon, and your espresso. And the difficult thing is, are you going to be polite and make 2 bites out of the custard pie? Or are you just going to go Azorian style and open your maw and throw the thing in?
Yes.
Because
you
a true
guess what Andrew
Azorian
did
will swallow it
today.
whole and then
great.
smile.
Okay.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know who's a real Azorian if you can just swallow it whole. So.
There you go. The challenge has been made. So I'll put that on the list. All right. Well, enough about reviews of different places to go in Portugal. But Catherine is going to talk about AI today. Well, which is featured, I assume, in her latest article. So,
yes.
Yeah. How can we use this to our advantage? There is that what you address or what?
Yeah, this article is AI plus AI. So if you are going to use artificial intelligence to help grow your business, I would invite you to also use not just the artificial intelligence tech, but another AI, which is authenticity and integrity in everything that you're doing. It's not enough for your business to just generate some AI slop, whether you're creating memes or posters or newsletters, because you're going to get found out. And nobody wants to be tricked into thinking you care. The meat on the bone of the diving industry is that we have relationships with the people that we're teaching how to dive and that we're taking on trips. And you can use AI to your advantage to buy back more time when you're running your business. So, what I suggest in the article is find ways to use artificial intelligence tech on the retail side, tracking inventory, on maybe creating surveys on customer retention and customer engagement, also creating your email newsletters, but do it in a way that AI is helping you frame those tasks. And then before it goes out, before you automate everything, come back in and personalize all of your messaging so that it's from you directly to your customer. And specific to that, don't let AI write things that you wouldn't say, because your customers will know the difference. They will call you out on it as a big fat faker, and then they'll go someplace else to do business with somebody who they think they can actually trust. So that's the big message of this article in this month's issue of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. And I offer a couple of examples on how to get started, how to create AI prompts that are going to win you some time that you can use successfully. And that way you spend more time with your clients. So that's the whole name of the game on it.
Yeah.
It's really well written.
Good
Excellent.
stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. I
Thank
mean,
you.
AI, I think, is a great tool, but that's the key. It's a tool, at least for now, till we have to answer to our digital overlords here in the future. But in the meantime, it is an awesome tool to use. But you are so right. You can tell when someone's written, for instance, like a press release that was done by AI, and there's a bunch of gobbledygook in there. And you're like, that person didn't write that. Come on.
It's getting better,
Yeah,
though,
so-
man. Every version's getting better and better and better.
Yeah,
It's
it
really
is.
remarkable.
Mhm.
Well,
stuff.
I just say don't automate until it's authentic, and then you're going to be good to go. So, and I offer some tips in the article. And if anybody wants more information, my email is always in at the bottom of every issue. So you can reach out and ask me specific questions, and I'll be happy to. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you, and we'll publish it in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine.
There you go.
I loved your suggestion of automated surveys, because I'm a huge research guy. But I thought,
Right.
using it so that after a trip is closed, maybe a survey goes out while they're even out on the boat. So when they get back, they're home, they've already got in their inbox kind of thing. I love that idea of using some of those tools like that. That gives you a great customer. That's what American Airlines does. Every flight I go on, I get a little survey, say, hey, how was it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which was
and
sent by
even though
AI, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. But they personalized it before they sent it out. And
Yeah,
that's
true.
what hooks us and keeps
Yeah.
us coming back.
Yes. Good stuff, as
Yeah,
always,
excellent.
Catherine. All right, up next, we're going to Jeff. He's the guy, page 50. Dive Pirates, bringing the entire scuba industry together, and Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. So what is Dive Pirates, and what can you tell us about it, Jeff? How you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm doing great. Dive Pirates is a foundation, and it's one of many foundations out there that are they exist to help train divers with physical or handicaps, or with disabilities. And Dive Pirates has been doing it for about 22 years now. And the reason I did this, last year I wrote an article about them, about how a dive center can see possibilities with adaptive diving. But this year, when I went on the trip, I looked at it from a different perspective. And that's how the entire diving community comes together through Dive Pirates. And when I say the whole community, it's dive centers that are around the country. We had dive centers participating from Texas and Michigan and Nevada, uh, Virginia, just all over the place, coming together to help train individuals. Dive Pirates sponsors recipients each year, where they will pay the whole freight for someone to become a scuba diver, someone with a physical disability to become a scuba diver, and they'll also train their buddy. So they equip them with the material, or with the gear that they need. But then the real interesting piece of it is they take them diving. And that's on their trip. They usually do an annual trip. Some years they do two. This year we descended to Bonaire, and we had 77 people on this trip. So an incredible day, incredible trip for these people who have physical disabilities to be in the water and be scuba divers, not a person with a disability. They are a scuba diver. So when I say everything comes together, it takes a resort like Divi Flamingo this year, who put out all the stops to help accommodate the divers, the wheelchairs, the people who needed a special assistance. They closed down their diving for a week so they could just focus on the dive pirate crew.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So we had the same kind of results with the Cayman Brack Beach Resort, which is they're going there in September as well. Now, the other thing is, like I said, the dive centers who become dive pirate chapters who help to train these divers, and then get them to the resort and get them in the water. And you have providers out there, manufacturers, distributors like Just Add Water Solutions who provide material for the trip. You have Litas who does some things like that. So we get the industry to contribute to the trip to make it really, really good. And then you have sponsors who sponsor the T-shirts or the lanyards. And another interesting thing is that there are scholarships that people fund for past recipients to come back diving. So it's people in, just in the diving community who want to do that. And finally, we bring just regular, everyday divers who come and want to help out. And that's how I got involved. When I sold the dive center, I wanted to do something a little different. So I got involved and just went down and volunteered to help people get in and out of the water. So it's an incredible experience to see, 77 people come together. And on our boat, we had 4 people in wheelchairs. So getting them in and out of the water is just a fascinating and rewarding experience. Now, Dive Pirates, I think, is a DEMA sponsor this year, which is, I think, new for them. And they're at the show. So I'd encourage any dive center that's interested in talking about it, or if you're an exhibitor at DEMA, to just stop by their booth and talk to them about the things that they do. Greg Wentworth is the president of Dive Pirates right now. He'll be in the booth. And Helen Armstrong, I think they both were on one of your podcasts, Willie.
Yes.
Early on. So again, there's not many times you see the whole dive industry come together like that.
And that's what's cool.
That's what's so cool about Dive Pirates is they bring it all together. And that's the only way it can be pulled off.
That's great.
Everybody works together. So I'm going back next year. I think they're going to be in Cayman Brack, and we'll have some fun again.
There you go.
Well, thank you for reporting on that great effort. And, it's amazing, Greg, how much the industry is starting to embrace adaptive diving. Dan wrote about it last month. Alex wrote about it a couple of months ago from a tourism standpoint. Dive Heart is another organization out there.
Right.
Force Blue, there's, a few of them out there, but it's really nice to see the industry really getting behind this concept, because it seemed like for the longest time, this was only a sport that you could do if you're able-bodied.
Yeah, no, scuba's the great equalizer
for
sure those
is.
folks. And I have never spoke to anyone who has joined a group like Dive Pirates and participated, helped them out, volunteered, who didn't just rave about it after they did it. I mean, it's just
really cool.
It's just a really a good feeling you come away with, and when you volunteer your time and do that, it's kind of like giving back. But they all come back and say the same exact thing, because I've interviewed a lot of them on Scuba Radio over the years as well. But they just say, "Man, I got way more out of this than I put into it. I just didn't expect that." So yeah, it's just one of those things you got to give a go. And I think you'll be
that's great,
pleasantly surprised.
So I'm going to set up the next speaker, Greg. Thank you again, Jeff. So Suze Martinez has a company called Scuba Do-Rag, and she's been an advertiser and a supporter of our magazine for a very long time, and we appreciate that. But we were talking, I think it was in Long Beach, as I recall, and Britt and I stopped by her booth, and, she was saying, I have so much I can lend to this industry. I have so much that I can help retailers with. And so we came up with this crazy idea that has been hugely successful so far, because I've even had another manufacturer contact me just today saying, I love everything she wrote about in this article. So she has a unique background in merchandising, which gives her a very interesting perspective. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to tee this up. It's on page 23 of the printed version and the flipbook version. Accessory advantage, small things can make a big profits. It's not about selling Scuba Durack. It's about selling accessories. And she does a brilliant job of helping retailers understand that something small can make a massive difference, not just in profits, but customer service. So thank you. And it's part of a multi-part series. I think we're dealing with displays next month. So excellent, timely, and well-written, Suze. And again, the feedback's been fantastic.
Yes, and by the way, Suze is the most colorfully dressed member of the dive industry year in and year out at any show you go to.
Her and Diane Thiel from Quest, they kind of compete back and forth.
Well, it's a friendly
Diane likes the pants. Yeah, exactly.
Hi, Suze. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So good to see fellow people I've known for, I cannot believe how long I've been in this industry. And just so you'll know, I do have a background in doing visual merchandising. And I used to do design work, like interior and for commercial and residential. And I used to be a professional Christmas elf, designing for banks and office buildings. So I don't know if any of y'all know that. But it's like scuba is just so amazing because so many of us come in and you just think you're going to do a lesson and you're just going to, figure it out. I was not scared of water. I was not scared of new equipment. I was not scared of doing anything, that I'd never done before. But at the same time, my design business was starting to I was kind of wanting to change it. Instead of doing big projects, I was wanting to do a lot of small things. And so I was developing a secret agent character. And it was about owning all of who you are and appreciating small things in life. And here we're talking about small accessories. But I decided to start scuba lessons. And all of a sudden, I never had I never knew I was going to end up in the industry. And I did not set out to manufacture something to get a patent. I didn't design any of that. I just took scuba lessons, realized I had some kind of strange performance anxiety, and I had to get good at scuba or I had to abandon my secret agent character. So what I did was I started paying attention to what people were doing on their dives, because that's the only way I was really, really learning was when I went on 8 dive trips in 2000. I just started paying attention. And this one girl that I was diving with had on a headband, and like every 5 minutes, she would take a regulator out of her mouth, pull the headband down, put it back up, put the regulator back in, and it would just like terrify me because I was so new. And I was thinking about buoyancy and all that. So anyway, I thought, wow, I'm glad I've got short hair, so I don't at least have to worry about my hair. But what did bother me in the industry when I first came in was people would say, oh, very strong current, keep up with me. And I'd go, what color are your fins? Black. And I'd go, well, what? Okay, well, your wetsuit's got a little bit of blue on it. So I was trying to like identify people because that was very important for me. And I didn't want to get lost. I didn't want to get left behind because I was just so new. I didn't understand everything. But anyway, so with all of that in mind, I just kind of came back after my 8th trip, sat down at a sewing machine, and I knew enough about that to be dangerous, and just developed this hat that could identify you underwater and contain your hair. Then I added other products too, but it's like the people that I've met along the way that just means so much to me. I remember when Dive Pirates walked into the Houston Sea Space Show, and that's when I first met them. But yeah, it's like, and when you're on these trips, I mean, like, I don't know about y'all, but I'm watching people's way that they do their gear. I'm watching what they bring on the boat. I'm watching how they organize what they do, because that's just the way my brain works. So like I said, I never intended to be in the industry, but the industry just got into me. And that was like 25 years ago.
Yeah. So the scuba do-rag was developed out of self-preservation, so you could identify the other divers. And it's become a thing, and a whole
Yes.
line of accessories that you've been selling in the dive industry for years. And so the message of your article is to kind of talk about looking for those opportunities from an accessory standpoint if you're a dive retailer, or what?
Yes, if you're a dive retailer, pay attention to your customers. And you may or may not already know where they're getting ready to go on their next trip, because they may be going with you. But ask them. So have you thought about the fact that this is the thing that really kind of amazes me. Like I've been at a lot of consumer shows, a lot of DEMA shows, and people will stand in front of me and they'll go, "I don't need those socks." And this is what retailers have to be aware of, is the fact that some customers automatically adopt this attitude that, oh, you're just trying to sell me something. Well, it's been proven that a lot of these things really work. And I'm not talking about just my products, but it's like when someone's standing in front of you and they're buying booties and fins and all this expensive equipment, and they'll go, "Well, I don't need those socks." And it's like, and I'm going, and I'll look over the table and I'll go, "Are you wearing shoes right now? Are you wearing socks with your shoes?" And a lot of times people don't understand that sometimes, especially if people are doing something like mountain climbing or whatever, that you need like a layer between the functional piece that you're using, your boot, your booty, your fins, whatever. You need like a functional layer in between that and your skin, because this is not something that you do every day unless you're in the industry. So people just kind of have to be shown that, and not only that, but I mean, like, they make people smile.
Sure.
People
Yeah,
love
it's
this.
a statement. You
Yeah,
you got to dive good, but you got to look good doing it,
and I
and
love
that can help.
I love this line that you wrote, and that is the most valuable thing a dive shop sells isn't equipment, it's confidence. So I think that sums up your whole article. Thank you again, Suze, for doing that. I can't wait to read next month's merchandising and displays. That's going to be very valuable tactical data and information for our retailer audience. So thank you again, and that's just a great start to the series.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. All right, let's go to page 47 in Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Michael Salvarezza has written an article, "The Key to a Great Dive, the Dive Briefing." So do you have a few of these briefings that you really appreciate and you want to share, Michael, or is that what it's all about, or what?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, thanks. And I always have to say this. I wrote this with my dive buddy, Chris Weaver, who's not here today, but he says hi. So I think all of us, we've been diving everywhere around the world, some of us for a million years. And, we've been through a dive briefing or two. And I think we can all agree that those dive briefings, they're a bit uneven, right? I've had an experience, where dive briefings are fantastic, amazing, captivating, funny. I've also sat on a boat baking in 105-degree temperature
My pet
with
peeve.
my wetsuit on while they're going through a dive briefing that, I'm almost about to pass out before it's over. There have been dive briefings that are very informative and others that are very perfunctory. So we thought that it would be a good idea to take a revisit to something that is often considered basic, the dive briefing. And try to lay out some of the elements of a dive briefing that are essential and some of the techniques that make it a little bit more interesting or a little bit more engaging or a little bit more memorable. So the whole intention of the article is for dive operators who are running dive boats or who are taking people out on dives to not forget the dive briefing, which is sort of the last mile before they get in the water, right? They've rented the gear or they've booked the trip. They've shown up at your shop. They've shown up at your resort. They're on your liveaboard, and now they're about to jump in the water, and it's a piece of the puzzle, and it's an essential one, because if the dive briefing makes the dive better for the divers, they remember that, and that becomes a part of sort of retaining them as customers. That's the purpose of the article. So we talk a little bit about, you know, the things that you want to add. You want to add safety. You want to add the in-water procedures, the how do you enter and exit. But there's a lot of other little tips and techniques that we wanted to highlight. So if you go through the article, you'll see it's not necessarily a checklist, but it's a list of things that you should keep in mind.
Well, you know, Michael,
I've been on a dive boat where, you know, you have 30 divers at the back of the boat, and they're splitting the groups up into, you know, these 8 divers go with that dive master, and you 8 go with that dive master, and okay, let's go in the water. And who's my dive master? What does he look like? What's he wearing? And you jump in the water, and I'm looking around. I don't even know who my dive master is.
Pandemonium, right?
Right.
Pandemonium.
Charlie Foxtrot. Yep.
Exactly. So anyway, that's why we wanted to write the article.
So this article is so good. I'm actually writing a 12-part series on delivering extraordinary service, mostly aimed at the resort industry or tropical dive operators. And this month I was actually planning to do one on dive briefing, but your article that you both wrote, it was so well and covered all the salient points. If you're a resort out there, or a tropical operator, or a boat operator, even in the Great Lakes, doesn't matter. If you're taking people out on a charter, read it, because he really covers some really great things. I know that one of my very favorite things on a dive boat when the briefing occurs is 2 things. One, they don't take forever, and they don't tell everybody to sit there in a wetsuit and bake like a clam. 2, they use an illustration or a drawing. And I mean, it could be so rudimentary. When I worked on the boats in South Florida many, many years ago, we had to drop down a whiteboard. Simple as can be, cost almost nothing. But if the visual showing someone a layout of a wreck, even if you're not a great artist, it was fantastic. And you had a good picture in your mind of where you're going, or coral heads, or whatever it might be. So thank you again. Pass our regards to Chris. Keep those great articles coming. I know you got some more in the hopper for us.
You're going to get one later today.
All right.
Okay.
There you go.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Well, let's move on to page 26. Retailer and business for 70 years. Candace from North Carolina, their secret sauce for success. So, Candace, what is your secret sauce? Really, 70 years? You can't be a year over 29.
Well, it's not my business.
Okay. I just want to clear the air and
but to be
score
clear,
some brownie points.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't look 70 just yet. So this obviously, I actually learned to dive when I lived in Oregon. So back in 2016, I discovered the wonderful world of cold water diving. And at the time, I did not know that the dive shop I was learning through was actually a really well-respected dive shop. And then obviously had this wonderful track record of success spanning back to the 1950s, which is really just incredible in the industry, I think. It's been 10 years now that I think I've been diving. And since leaving Oregon, I've frankly never seen a dive shop like this. So when they reached out to me and said, would you interview us and do a write-up, and, we'll trust you to say whatever you want. I was thrilled, because I've honestly, like I've said, never come across a dive shop that provided such superior service. And I think they did have a lot of really valuable information to share. If you read the article, you'll realize it's about 1,500 words, so it's quite long. So really distilling, the secrets to success into 5 minutes is hard. So I figured I'd just say that I'll give you a brief overview and then jump into one of the things that I think the owner of the dive shop, Michael Hollings, had really called out as key for them. But he calls, their secret sauce unglamorous. He says, run lean, keep your people there forever, treat other dive shops as allies and not the competition, and deliver customer service that's real instead of a slogan. And of course, you have to do this for 70 years straight. So that's part of the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and shout out for Dan Orr, because he's the one that sent me a note and said, "Hey, do you know that?" Because he knows the Hollings heads, I guess, Diana and Michael, and said, they're celebrating 70 years. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" So thank you, Dan. I know you're probably not listening, but you'll see this later for making that suggestion.
Right. Yeah, and I think Faith, he's on the trip with Faith Ortons, and
Yes.
she also popped in and out of Eugene Skin Divers quite a lot when I was back there. So nice to see this industry is very tight. But the thing I really want to focus on is what Michael called out right at the end, where he says, the one piece of advice he'd give a retailer is that customer service is key to everything. And it's the real thing, not the slogan. So I think this, harkens back to what someone on the call, sorry, I can't remember your name, was saying about AI, that you have to be, what Catherine was saying about AI, that you really have to be, true to who you are and honest with your customers. And I think the same applies for good customer service. And plenty of shops, say they offer great service and they don't. And Michael says that Eugene Skin Divers Supply, it means, fixing things in the back room. It means replacing something, often for free, handing it back without that sales pitch. It means staying late. It means learning a customer's name and using it, learning every customer's name. And then just, making sure you're not forcing sales. You'll get a sale if you're providing good service in the end, and people will stay loyal and even want to help you when things get tough. But it might not be immediate. It will be, maybe next week, maybe the next month. But you'll get that, and you'll get really good vibes as well from them. So something he says there. There are so many other, secrets to success, I guess, if you want to call it that, that he provides. So I just honestly encourage everyone to read this article. It's, mostly in his own words, so I didn't add too much there. And there's so much valuable insight.
Yeah, I think the most insightful for me, the most heartwarming part was his assistant manager had been there 44 years before retiring. His service technician is going on 4 decades and still there. The manager's been there 3 decades. I mean, every dive shop in the country should be listening, and the world should be listening to this advice that Candace has written about, because it really is. It's like the old news radio show from a million years ago, The Secret of Success, The Secret of Management, and you've really kind of outlined those basic parts that every dive center needs to read. And doesn't apply just to a dive retailer. This applies to a resort. It applies to any operator that's got staff, which is our entire industry. So manufacturing, everything. It's just a really cool job. And thank you, Candace. I'm going to invite the Hollingsheads onto another one of our podcasts, and we're going to invite you as well, since you're a former customer. So it'll be kind of cool to have you on there with them as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, William.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on to, let's go to page 36 with David Pritchard, One Destination, Two Dive Worlds, Chuuk Lagoon.
Okay. Before he starts, when I was 12 years old, I believe it was, I started my first open water course. It took me 2 years to get certified. I wasn't very good at it. But anyhow, in our classroom was a poster for, back then they called it Chuuk Lagoon. And I can to this day visualize this poster of Chuuk Lagoon and thinking someday this is my bucket list place on the planet I'd love to go dive, these wrecks. So David, your article really resonated with me, and I love what you and your lovely partner Lily wrote, and I'm going to turn it over to you. But the tip question is there why is there an urgency to diving Chuuk, and is it sooner versus later? So.
Yeah, Chuuk or truck? Answer that question first.
Yeah, Chuuk. Right.
Okay. Well, for those that aren't familiar with it, everybody's heard of it as Chuuk Lagoon.
Right.
And that's because its real name is Chuuk. But when the Germans took over the islands back at the end of the 1800s, they couldn't pronounce that part of it, so it's Chuuk. So that's what it's kept, and everybody kept it, even when it exchanged hands after World War I with the Japanese, who back then were on our side.
Okay, well, I just want to know when I go there with Willie and I say Chuuk, Chuuk, or truck, are they going to smack me if I say one of the wrong ones, or no?
I'm sure.
They'll just smack me.
They're very appreciative of you being there no matter what.
Okay. All right, I don't have to worry about being smacked.
But the reason why people go there's over 60 wrecks in the lagoon, and those are the main ones. There's more on the outskirts everywhere, but it's both ships and aircraft, both shallow and deep. And what it was is our answer to Pearl Harbor on the Japanese fleet, that if they hadn't also been doing too many aerial reconnaissance beforehand and scared the Japanese, there would have been a lot more wrecks, because the Japanese admiral took out a lot of his ships, military ships, and left, but they still left a bunch of armed ships that are, that all their Maroos are carriers, cargo ships, but they armed them with a deck cannon on the front and the bow. And so they make really good wrecks to go in there. But they've been underwater for 82 years now in saltwater. So that's a lot of corrosion and a lot of weakening of the structures themselves. And especially the ships that are laying on their side, that the other side of the hull and everything's crushing down on the interiors of those walls. Those walls aren't made to withstand so much pressure over so much time. And the deeper wrecks are the ones that are starting to go first, because you also have, the weight of the pressure of the water on top of you, so many atmospheres. And even like now, the San Francisco Maru, one of the deepest wrecks that you can go into, that we enjoyed when we were there a while back, it's starting to leak oil because the internal portions of it are corroding and starting to leak. There's a lot of shipwrecks there that you can't dive on, or you couldn't dive on before, because they were carrying aviation fuel, and that's very toxic, and they were leaking. So there may be more and more shipwrecks. Eventually, they'll be on the do not dive list because of things starting to corrode and get, start
Toxic.
leaking things into the water.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that was delivered quite a bit was explosives. So there's a lot of torpedoes, artillery shells, including 18-inch shells for the Yamamoto battleship, things like that are starting to degrade and become more dangerous. And also, once they start leaking all that combustible material, the explosives, are going to leak into the water, and they're going to be toxic as well. So the sooner you go, the better off you'll be able to see what the image on that poster that you wanted to see, because ships just are breaking down. Aircraft, I know I submitted pictures of, there was a Japanese Zero inside of the hull of the Fujikawa Maru, and at the time you could actually crawl into the cockpit and get a picture of yourself, in the cockpit, but that may not be possible anymore, just because those kind of things are getting thinner and thinner and degrading. So sooner is the better on there. Also, all the artifacts and things that are inside the ship that you see, the gas masks, the fire extinguishers, the bottles of sake and beer, because they had a lot of that in there on those ships. They're starting to corrode, or sediment and stuff like that's starting to bury it. So the longer you wait, the less you're going to see there. Now, the other side of it, marine life has taken over the ships, and you've got beautiful corals, and lots of animals live on these artificial reefs now. So, as well as the regular reefs that they have there. But if you really want to see more of the shipwrecks and things that's exciting, and again, some of those you can snorkel on, to go back to Dan's article on there. So they're that shallow, but a lot of technical divers go do the deep wrecks, but you can do everything, because a lot of times there's army tanks that are strapped onto the deck of a ship, and you go down, take pictures of that. But that everything is going to start degrading. So time to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for such a great article. Yeah, we need to go now, don't we? Don't we, Greg?
Absolutely.
Like when?
Yeah, exactly. That's the only problem. But yeah, it's on my list for sure too.
Well, thanks again. Thanks, and pass our regards to Lily. She's over in the Philippines, right?
No, she is just
Indonesia.
getting back after 40 hours of travel from Limbe Strait, doing a macro photography workshop over there for a couple of weeks. So she has faded out after 40 hours of travel.
Wow. That's great.
Good on her, for sure.
She's going to have more good photos for you.
There you go.
That sounds fantastic.
All right, let's move on. We got page 34, The Rise of the Wellness Diver, A Changing Attitude. Meredith is with us as we just got bombed. I don't know. What the heck?
That's coming in the background here, so I guess you can hear me okay. We actually have an air raid that goes off right at this time once a week in our neighborhood.
I thought you were...
Sorry, I had to share that with all of you.
I thought you were planning to do another wreck or something.
I thought we were in Truck Lagoon. Yeah, the Japanese were attacking or something.
Like, wow, we got sound effects. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting. I think that should be the end of it now, but it's a good way to make sure everybody's awake and still
Yeah, got our attention, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Excellent. Well, happy to be here with everybody today. I've really enjoyed hearing from everybody else so far. Perhaps I'll just go ahead and introduce myself briefly. So Dr. Meredith Calvert. So I'm a neuroscientist, but I'm also a yoga teacher and a scuba diver. And I've been sort of doing all three of these things for about 20 years or so now. And so the article that I shared this month was really trying to kind of share some of my perspective on how I've seen the dive industry change since I started diving, but also how some of my work as a yoga teacher and a neuroscientist has kind of informed some of this as well. So for myself, when I started diving, I was a very nervous diver, as William kind of spoke to. I had a similarly long time to get through my open water certification. There were lots of failed attempts, lots of mask removals that didn't go well, all of that. I just had a lot of anxiety around it, which I think is a pretty natural thing, right? Mm-hmm. Diving can be very intimidating to new divers. So for myself, again, I'd been practicing yoga for a number of years. And so in those early days when I was starting to dive, I really noticed how using some of my yoga practices, my breath work, just sort of, gentle mind control, that type of thing really, really helped me overcome that initial anxiety and kind of become a more confident diver. As I've been diving through the years, I've sort of seen this shift where we're getting more and more divers coming to diving, less from this idea of it being, sort of a thrill seeker's sport, although, as we all know, diving is very exciting. That's certainly an element to it. But also, when we're under the water, and there's that magical moment on every dive, and it's my own favorite, where you sort of go right beneath the surface, the water line travels up over your mask, and then suddenly everything goes quiet. And for me, like, that state is really similar to sort of the same state I find in my yoga practice as well. There's something really meditative about that, and then you have that experience of kind of floating over a reef, a little bit like you're flying. So to me, diving has always been this very kind of slow, calming, meditative practice. And so, really what I was trying to touch on in my article is I'm seeing that, that's sort of not just me. There's this shift now where we're seeing more and more people who are coming to diving, both for kind of a kind of self-development or self-growth, right? There's that process of growth we go through when we do have anxiety or fear around something, and then we get beyond that to actually get to experience it. There's a lot of growth there. But also, this attempt to sort of connect with nature, to experience something that's larger than ourselves as well. So diving can provide a lot of that as well. So I think what we're seeing in terms of the shift in the industry is, I wouldn't say it's like a new audience as much as a slow evolution towards this type of diver. A big piece of it is also, of course, conservation, right? As people understand coral reefs are disappearing, there's a drive to want to experience them for yourself, but also to be part of that conservation, right? We're seeing a lot more like coral reef restoration efforts that are inviting citizen scientists, those types of programs as well, which I think is attracting a different type of diver in addition there. If we look at kind of the industry data, what we're seeing is that if you look at like wellness travel in general, it's a huge and very rapidly growing industry. So wellness tourism alone last year hit almost $10 trillion, which is kind of mind-boggling to think about.
Big number.
It's a huge number, right? And it's just growing incredibly rapidly. We're seeing similar growth in the yoga industry as well, right? Yoga is becoming a household name, whereas that really wasn't the case even as recently as 10 years ago. And so sort of noticing all this, I run a research lab as a scientist, but about 4 years ago, I had the chance to take a sabbatical. I used that sabbatical to put together a yoga and scuba diving retreat. And at the time when I did that, I thought, well, maybe this is just me, right? Maybe this is a crazy idea and there's nobody else out there who wants to do yoga and scuba diving at the same time. But it was a huge success. It was great. You know, we got a lot of people. I've been running these trips now every year for the last 4 years. And, you know, it's growing. I'm actually hoping to run 4 or 5 of them next year with this sort of increasing audience. And I got the idea, to be honest, from the yoga and surf retreat industry. So yoga and surfing is something that we see together more and more and more. That's another growing market. So just last year, the surf and yoga retreat market was around $9 billion. So again, there's a lot of money there, and that's growing rapidly.
And your retreat you hold in Roatan at Barefoot Key Resort, right?
That's right, yeah.
Our good friend Melissa Sanchez there. They're one of our sponsors. We appreciate that. In fact, that's how we met. I popped by and saw you at the booth. I think it was in Long Beach. Britt and I did. And then you have another one coming up in the Polynesia somewhere, South Pacific.
That's right. Yeah. So next year we'll be adding a second location. We're going to be going to the Tuamotus. So I'm going to keep the exact location a little bit secret for now till we launch that. But I'm really, really excited. We found a phenomenal location there. And I think speaking to that, it's right. There's a certain number of ingredients that we kind of need for a successful location for that. It's got to be a small boutique dive resort. Obviously, we want great diving. That's why we go on these trips. We need a space to do yoga, right? And that doesn't need much, but just like a large deck area or even, you know, a shady part of the beach, something like that. But it's also this willingness on the behalf of the resort to be open to this idea, right? It is a different type of traveler for sure. You know, we want to be able to provide nice healthy food, vegetarian options. Another thing that we can think about integrating are like some breath work practices. So, you know, breath control is a huge part of both yoga and diving. So another overlap there between the two. Thinking about what makes a great dive briefing, right? Even just using a little bit of mindfulness or an opportunity for divers to just take a big calm breath before they go on the dive. You know, those types of efforts can really make a huge difference in just getting people into that kind of calm state of mind before they ever go on the dive.
Yeah. Well, and when they're on the dive, you could do downward dogfish?
Underwater. It does make it easier.
I don't know.
That's right. We've got dolphin pose.
Yeah,
we've got fish pose. We've got all kinds of good stuff there. So yeah, so we're seeing a lot of overlaps, and I think we're going to see more and more of that moving into the future.
Well, thank you, Meredith. Great article. I look forward to seeing more. And check out her ad is on right with her article integrated in it on page 34. So thanks again for joining us and being a new writer with us.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, Willie, you're up next.
Yeah. So
what did you do this month?
Caboose the whole show here. So last month I wrote an article. You know, there's been a lot of accidents in our industry, and I say a lot. From what I understand, statistically, we've not had more this year than any other typical year. We just had a lot of high-profile accidents that have, you know, resulted in kind of social media, you know, being judge and jury and executioner without really knowing the facts. So 2 issues ago, I said, you know, let's just all take it down a thou till you know what exactly happens in an accident. You know, all you're doing is compounding a problem. And then I transitioned from that last month's article where a lot of accidents have occurred that appear to be an error of judgment on the part of the teaching staff. Maybe they brought too many people in the water for the given conditions, or the people weren't prepared, children, so on. There's a lot of different things happening in our industry right now in that regard. So having been a course director and having taught instructors as well as open water students over the years, many times the instructor needs to make a judgment call, and that was my article last month about whether you should do the dive, and if you do the dive, change the minimums. The standards are just like a speed limit on a freeway. Doesn't mean you have to go that fast unless you live in LA or Dallas, but
Right.
if it's rainy or it's slick or it's icy, there's no requirement you go 70 miles an hour. Same thing with a dive instructor teaching. Just because it says you can do 8 people doesn't mean you should do 8 people if the conditions don't warrant it. So I received a little bit of fire on social media because a couple of different people that had posted said, well, that's all fine and good if you own your own business and you can make those decisions. But a lowly dive instructor on the back of a boat and some tropical location rarely has that ability, and they'll get fired if they cancel a dive or pull people off the boat or whatever. So it was a very valid point, because I have worked with very, very large, high volume operators where last thing you want to do is give up a tip or refund a customer. So this month I wrote a follow-up to last month, which is a culture that supports judgment. It's from the publisher, but the series is looking at, if you don't create a culture within your operation, it doesn't matter whether you're a retailer or you're a tropical dive operator or a resort or liveaboard, where the staff have the ability to establish a stop work authority, you're just going to eventually run into a problem that has occurred. In fact, there are several examples that have occurred even this year of where there should have been a stop work authority, a stop dive order given. I know that in some discussions I had recently with a safety organization, they're actually working on a whole series of videos to help people understand the concept of denial of service. It's a concept we don't use in this industry, but it needs to. So my article talks about that there are several things that a dive operator should establish, a retailer or a resort, and that is to require clear explanation if a dive is ever called. Review the decision immediately once the risk is passed. Separate the safety review from the customer service response. Look for patterns. That's probably the most importantly. If you have an instructor that calls one dive one day and that doesn't happen again for months and months at a time, and the conditions did warrant it, that's not a pattern of abuse or a pattern of problem. So anyhow, it's a follow-up to last month. I think that we as an industry are going to be embarking upon a new era. And I believe that we're going to start seeing that the dive instructors always been empowered with the decision-making process. I'm not sure they've always used it in the past to their fullest.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of talk right now of changing industry standards because of some accidents. And yet, it's almost impossible to standardize judgment.
Right.
And for instance, if I'm in Neil Watson's operation in that crystal clear Bimini water you're seeing in the background there, and I've got a group of 8 people, and we're doing a confined water session, or say open water session right off the boat or right off the beach there, I can see all 8 people perfectly fine. I'm within visual direct supervision at all times with a group in that environment. In a cold quarry in the middle of the, in the middle of the Midwest with visibility barely in your arm, those same conditions do not apply. And it's very hard to write a standard that applies to all these different variables that occur. It could still be crystal clear. It could still be beautiful tropical weather, but there could be a howling current at that location.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got customers that are not familiar with their gear. They're using rentals or whatever. I mean, there's all different conditions. It's almost impossible to write a standard for. So that's the purpose of my 2 articles really were, one, the instructor does have, just like a pilot, the no-go decision making, and they need to utilize it. And 2, if they do, the operation needs to have a management structure in place that supports those decisions.
So true. Yeah. Like you said, you mentioned being a pilot, you're the pilot in command. There's all these standards and things that you're trained, but it's up to the pilot to make that final decision, go or no go.
And that goes all the way to the commercial airliners. I mean, you hear all the time about a pilot walking off a plane with 300 people on the way to Hawaii because he said, I don't like the log I saw. I don't feel comfortable with it. And they have to legally back that pilot up.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they do track, does he do this all the time, or is this a one-off thing? Just like I said for instructors. So next month, we've got some really cool stuff. Kramer Wimberly, I love his writing. It's very, he writes a very interesting concept he's in charge of a nonprofit out of the Northeast, but he writes a lot about the connection between the dive industry and the future generations or the current younger generations and the connection to the ocean. It's really a deep kind of, I call it deep writing. Dan's going to continue his series next month. I've got some more. We have an interesting one of our writers that's written for us several times, Carlos Lander, out of Venezuela. He's been working on a book that he just published, and it covers World War II in the Caribbean. And there has been U-boats sunk in the Caribbean, and even Jacques Cousteau had come across them over the years and in different places. So he wrote a whole book about World War II and wrecks that have been found or are still being sought out in the Caribbean that they got very, very close to us during World War II, of course, since the entire East Coast has tons of U-boats littered out there. So we're going to have him on. He's written an article, and he'll be a great guest as well. And Alex, of course, is continuing his amazing series on, unfortunately, our current conditions of the coral reefs and what we can do about it.
Good stuff, as always, Willie. Well, I think that puts a button on another edition of the big show today, you think?
It sure does. I'm going to do one more shout out, and that's to Alex. He couldn't be here today, but he's working on a program that we're really excited to be going to help promote it and partner with him any way we can. And he took the concept of the Eco Pro, which is a program he taught for years at ProDive that became Sea Experience, and has turned it into a resort-based training program for destinations. And I think very soon there's going to be an announcement of a couple of destinations that are going to be unveiling his new course. And it's all designed at the in-water professional and how they need to understand the relationship between themselves, the customers, and the coral reefs and the ocean in general. So it's a really cool concept, and we're going to be supporting it here at the magazine.
There you go. Well, we'll hear about that on the next episode of Level Up. But other than that, I think we can wrap it up for this week.
I think we're done. We're right on time.
All right. Well, that'll do. And I am Greg the Divemaster. Check out Scuba Radio every Saturday, 3 to 5 Eastern time. But until then, remember, it's always better. Where, Willie?
Neil?
Or Neil.
Down where it's wetter.
That's it.
There you go.
This has been Level Up, the podcast of Scuba Diving Industry Magazine. Produced by Scuba Radio and the Cline Group. For more info, go to scubadivingindustry.com.